prosecutors told to clean up their desks by midnight in a move that one source says, quote, could not have been handled any worse. What's behind the surprise purge? Plus a handful of counterintelligence agents working in the shadows. Secret briefings on Capitol Hill. But what do we really know about Russia? Now, a week after President Trump's infamous wiretapping accusations, the leaders of the House Intelligence Committee telling CNN they still haven't seen any evidence to back up the president's claims. So let's get right to our breaking news now. The surprise firing of dozens of U.S. attorneys. Joining me now is John Flannery, the former federal prosecutor for the Southern District of New York, CNN legal analyst Laura Coates, attorney Stuart Kaplan, a former special agent with the FBI. Good evening to you. So glad that all of you can join us this evening. Laura, I'm going to start with you.
Good evening.
It was a total surprise to the U.S. attorneys who were fired tonight. Many of them are shocked. Some are traveling on government business now. How was this handled?
You know, it's not particularly strange that the new administration has called for the existing or the holdover U.S. attorneys to actually resign. This usually happens at the beginning of every administration. What is odd is the abruptness, and of course, you're dealing with a president who has some pending lawsuits across the United States, which makes people kind of raise their eyebrows and think to themselves, is this about a personal rebuke, or is this about a professional administration trying to simply clean house to have people in place who will continue their policies or certainly buttress their policies? I think it's very shocking in terms of the abruptness, but not in terms of the overall plan to transition.
Stuart, it is not, it is not unusual for a first-time president to, for a new president, I should say, to clean house, as Laura said. But why the pack your bags and get out kind of tactic? Is there a message behind the politics here?
Well, we have a president who has a specific agenda, and I think he's made it very clear. And when we just talk about the immigration policy that he is steadfast on implementing, he wants to make sure that the lead federal law enforcement officers, that being each and every U.S. attorney, and keep in mind there is 93 of them throughout the United States, that they're going to adhere to his policy. And I don't read into the abruptness of it. In fact, if ironically, Jeff Sessions was forced to resign going back when Janet Reno became the Attorney General back in 1993 when Bill Clinton was elected. So I don't necessarily see it as being so abrupt. I think it was just a matter of when it was going to happen, and it just happened today.
Okay, so John, this comes less than 24 hours after Fox News personality Sean Hannity, a friend of the president, said this.
Now, for weeks, we've been warning you about the deep state Obama holdover government bureaucrats who are hell-bent on destroying this president, President Trump. Tonight, it's time for the Trump administration to begin to purge these saboteurs before it's too late.
So, coincidence, you think, or is this another example of the president having a knee-jerk reaction to a right-wing news story?
I think that it's a plan, actually. I mean, after all, Hannity's kind of Trump's troll, and those two have been trading information and patting each other on the back since through the campaign. The real question here is this a spoils decision, or is it an effort to conceal or compromise ongoing investigations? Just take where the U.S. attorney was told when he was perceived to be investigating Democrats that his job was secure. Now he's gone. I think it could have to do with the Deutsche Bank, a foreign bank in which our president has $300 million in debt. And that bank is under serious investigation in the Southern District of New York. And it's also under investigation in the UK for money transfers involving Russia, rubles for dollars and dollars that then left Russia. So it's very suspicious when you consider which U.S. attorneys will be persisting in office and those who won't. And I bet it'll be a curious pattern to observe if it's sanctuary cities, as New York is one, and others, because some people are being told, oh, we're going to keep you. So we look at a number of 46, but then maybe we're selecting which investigations concern us. I think that that's a critical question to ask any U.S. attorney. And these people are not inside, trying to overthrow the government. These are people who are very serious lawyers who do civil and criminal cases and represent the government and have been probably assistant U.S. attorneys before.
We'll talk about the people who were asked to stay but go ahead, I'm sorry.
I mean, Don, look, I disagree. When you look about the politics that have played out in New York City more recently with respect to the U.S. attorney Preet Bharara, who has clearly crossed party lines to prosecute one Democrat after another. And you have Bill de Blasio investigation, you have the Andrew Cuomo investigation. Certainly it would seem to me that it would have been, or it is in Trump's best interest to keep him in place. And I'm not necessarily sure that the U.S. Attorney in the Southern District is going to step down. I just don't see it that way. While he asked for the resignations, it doesn't mean he has to accept it.
John?
Well, you know, Wall Street. I'm sorry. Excuse me. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead,
one of the things that you're missing, though, is, of course, the idea that, yes, the president could choose not, or Jeff Sessions could choose not to accept resignations, but it's the timing of the Sean Hannity comment in conjunction with the comments of Sean Spicer earlier today about this sort of deep state. If this were simply a matter of a presidential administration who is simply trying to clean house in a benign sense, in a way to show that they're trying to have U.S. attorneys in place who are going to be harsher on drug offenders and other things that Jeff Sessions has talked about, that's one thing. However, the timing of it to come so quickly and almost insinuates the people who are Obama era appointees are going to be trying to compromise or undermine this administration. And interestingly enough, one of the things we look to U.S. attorneys to do is to be the objective enforcer of the law, and that if the congressional laws stand, that's what they're enforcing. And so it's a little insulting to career appointees, it's insulting to career attorneys, and it's certainly to U.S. attorneys who are being removed not because of a normal transition, but because of an implication that they are somehow trying to corrupt or undermine this administration.
But I'm wondering also, too, John, you were, I mean, say it plainly. Do you think that he's putting people in there favorable to him, that this is saying that he has something to hide? You mentioned Deutsche Bank. You mentioned him owing money by your assessment.
Well, yes, I do, and it goes right to his violation of the constitutional clause about emoluments. Here we have a bank he owes $300 million to. $170 million of that was involved in the Washington bank that bears his name. He's done nothing to disgorge or separate himself from these things in the traditional sense. So we have a president with a built-in conflict. Also, we have the head of the Justice Department who has his own set of conflicts. And then what is he doing? Purifying the department of people who are some of the most outstanding lawyers in America. U.S. attorneys, Republican and Democrat, don't go into those offices usually except to serve the public. They're giving up sorts of other benefits because they really want to serve our country. And we've had past presidents who continued them, and they have worked with them when they've had investigation. This is exactly the opposite. This is cutting them off at the legs, leave your keys on the desk and get out of the building. We don't do it that way in the past. So you have to question why we're doing it here. And if it's based on alt-right state paranoia, what kind of a government is that? That we run our government out of fear. We don't trust the people who've been working for us for 4 and 8 and 6 years doing the most complicated litigation in the world. It's just amazing.
Well, there does seem to be a bit of paranoia here, especially when there have been so many leaks and they're concerned about where these leaks are coming from, asking people to turn over their cell phones and going on the media saying that we're going to track down these leaks instead of figuring out how to fix the problem at where the leaks came about. But two of you mentioned
run the government. Yeah, I'm sorry, but run the government well, and you won't have these leaks. Do what's honest. Do what's right. The problem with our government, it's perceived to be corrupt by everybody except the alt-right and the ditto heads that follow Trump's tweets. That's not the way to run a government. We go from one crisis to another. Here we are on Friday talking about another mess up, and there are other words you could apply. And every other day we have something. That's no way to run a government.
Yeah, it's late, but not that late. We can't use those words, John. But again, you guys mentioned, two of you mentioned the people who were asked, who were called back. The president had to call back the acting deputy attorney general and the man nominated to be deputy AG and ask them to stay on. So what does this say about his thinking, the thinking that went into this? Laura?
Well, obviously, he is somebody who's aware that a lot of his appointees are not getting through with the speed that he anticipated. And remember, these U.S. attorneys have to be confirmed by the Senate. They can't simply just be somebody that he appoints and says, now you go and do the job. They have to actually pass some muster. And so the people that they're talking about right now, you've got who is the Eastern Virginia U.S. Attorney who stepped in when Sally Yates stepped down, we'll call it stepped down, when she was fired by President Trump to replace about the travel ban, and he stepped in and willingly said he would enforce that law. And you've got Rosenstein, who is the person who has been called on by prior attorney generals in the past, handled Whitewater, worked for Kenneth Starr, who has been the longest serving U.S. attorney across different presidential